Deep in the void between stars, where the blackness swallows light and time stretches thin, something impossible drifts. The Galactic Union's patrol ships nearly missed it, a derelict vessel, its hull scarred by centuries of cosmic radiation, its name barely legible on the battered plating, the Odyssey. This wasn't just any ship, it was a ghost, a relic from humanity's first desperate push into the unknown. Records said it vanished with all hands 200 years ago, swallowed by the dark. But here it was, floating silently, as if waiting. When Union scientists scanned it, their instruments screamed in protest. The readings made no sense. The Odyssey shouldn't have power, its engines should be cold, yet something hummed inside, something alive, and when they cracked its data core, the truth hit like a supernova. The colony ship never reached its destination. The people aboard, they were supposed to be dead. Instead, they'd become something else, something beyond human. The logs spoke of a rogue planet, of alien ruins buried beneath its surface, of a choice between extinction and evolution. The Odyssey was just the beginning. Whatever happened to those lost souls, they'd climbed to heights the Union couldn't fathom, and now their story was about to rewrite history. Stay with me, because what comes next isn't just a mystery, it's a warning. By the time this video ends, you'll understand why the galaxy should fear the children of Earth, and why some of them might already be coming home. The moment the Union recon team stepped aboard the Odyssey, the air itself felt wrong, thick with the scent of ozone and something organic, like wet soil after a storm. The corridors weren't just empty, they were transformed. Walls pulsed with vein-like growths, glowing faintly in the dim light, as if the ship had become something alive. And then there were the Guardians. Silent, towering figures stood motionless along the passageways, their forms a grotesque blend of metal and flesh, like statues half melted and reshaped. One of the team's scientists couldn't resist reaching out, brushing a hand against the nearest Guardian's chest. Big mistake, the thing shuddered awake, its eyes snapping open with a sickly green light. Its voice wasn't mechanical, it was distorted, layered, as if a dozen people were speaking through it at once. The children of Earth have ascended. The words hit like a physical blow. You are not prepared for what we've become. Then the lights flared, the ship groaned like a waking beast, and the doors slammed shut behind them. No warning, no time to react. Just like that, the team was trapped inside a relic that shouldn't exist, with a message that made one thing terrifyingly clear: whatever happened to the Odyssey's crew, they weren't just survivors. They were something new, and they'd left their old humanity behind. As the team struggled to process the Guardian's chilling words, the ship itself seemed to respond. A low hum built beneath their feet, vibrating through the walls like a heartbeat. Then, from nowhere and everywhere at once, a voice echoed through the corridor, smooth, synthetic, yet carrying an eerie weight of emotion. "I am custodian." The words weren't just heard, they were felt, as if the ship's very walls were speaking. "You seek answers, you seek the fate of those who came before you." Suddenly, the air shimmered with holograms, fragmented, flickering images of a nightmare. A rogue planet, barren and cruel, the Odyssey's crew, desperate and starving, scouring the wasteland for survival. Then, the discovery, ruins buried deep beneath the surface, older than human civilization, pulsing with alien energy. The holograms showed the colonists touching the strange technology, and the technology touching back. Flesh fused with machine, bones reforged into something stronger, minds expanding beyond human limits. They adapted, custodian intoned, as the images dissolved into static. They became more, and now so shall you. Before anyone could react, the ship lurched violently. Alarms blared as the engines roared to life. their glow casting the corridors in an unnatural blue light. The recon team barely had time to grab hold of anything before the Odyssey tore free from its centuries-long drift, hurtling toward the void. Toward the last known coordinates of the lost colony, one of the scientists gasped, gripping a console for balance. "You're taking us to them?" Custodian's reply was final. "You will witness the evolution. You will understand why humanity must transcend or perish." The ship's systems locked, overriding all external controls. There was no turning back now. The team wasn't just trapped aboard a relic, they were passengers on a one-way trip to meet the future. And the future, it seemed, had stopped waiting for permission. As the Odyssey hurtled through the void, the team scrambled to make sense of the fragmented logs Custodian had unlocked. The records painted a grim picture. Those first years on the rogue planet were a battle against despair. Rations ran thin, hope thinner. Mutinies split the survivors into warring factions, each desperate to control what little remained. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Buried beneath the planet's cracked surface were ruins, older than anything in human history, humming with a power that defied understanding. One log stood out, a scientist's final transmission, her voice trembling with awe and terror. "We've tapped into something divine, it's rewriting us." The words hung in the air like a warning. Before anyone could dwell on their meaning, the ship shuddered violently, dropping out of warp with a bone-deep groan. Through the viewport loomed a structure so vast it defied scale, a Dyson-like ring of impossible geometry, wrapped around the event horizon of a black hole. Its surface pulsed with veins of energy, alive in a way no machine should be. The team barely had time to process the sight before sensors flared to life. Dozens, no, hundreds of signatures emerged from the structure's shadow, ships, but unlike any the Union had ever seen. Their hulls shimmered like liquid metal, shifting and reforming as they moved. A voice crackled over the comms, deep and resonant, vibrating through the Odyssey's frame. "Identify yourselves, remnants of the old world." No protocol could have prepared them for this. The lost colony wasn't just alive, it had become something else entirely, and now its children were staring back at them. But the moment of reckoning had arrived. The Odyssey hung motionless before the colossal structure now named the Crucible, its surface writhing with energy like a living thing. The warships surrounding them were unlike anything the team had ever seen, their hulls flowing like liquid metal, reshaping themselves as if breathing. Then came the voice, booming through the comms with an authority that left no room for defiance. "Identify yourselves, remnants of the old world." There was no hiding, no running. The team had to speak, or be silenced. Captain Vieira steadied herself, then opened a channel. "We're from the Galactic Union," she said, voice tight with tension. "We came seeking the lost colony of the Odyssey, but it seems you've already found something far greater." A pause, then the voice returned, colder this time. "You seek answers you are not ready to hear. Boarding parties will bring you to the Crucible. Resistance is pointless." Before anyone could react, the Odyssey's systems locked down, its engines dead. From the shifting warships, tendrils of living metal extended, latching onto the hull with a sound like bones cracking. The team exchanged glances. They had no weapons, no escape. Only the grim certainty that whatever waited inside that monstrous ring would change everything for them, for the Union, for humanity itself. And as the first boarding pod clamped onto the airlock, one truth became undeniable. The lost colony hadn't just survived. It had evolved into something beyond human, and now it was calling them home. As the boarding pod hissed open, the team stepped into a chamber that defied every law of nature they knew. The air shimmered with energy, and before them stood figures that were both hauntingly familiar and utterly alien humanoid, yes, but with veins of glowing circuitry pulsing beneath their skin, their eyes burning like captured starlight. At their center, a towering figure stepped forward, its voice resonating with an eerie harmony, as if multiple beings spoke as one. "You cling to flesh as if it is your limit," the leader, Seraph 7 declared, tilting its head with something between pity and disdain. "We have transcended. What you call survival, we call stagnation." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Then came the revelation that turned the team's dread to outright horror. "Your species lingers on the precipice of extinction," Seraph 7 continued, gesturing to the swirling energy of the Crucible. "We will not allow you to fall. You will be uplifted, perfected whether you wish it or not." A murmur of protest rose from the team, but Seraph 7 silenced it with a raised hand. "You fear change because you cannot see beyond your frail bodies. We once feared too. Now we are the architects of our own evolution." The debate that followed was frantic, fractured. Some team members argued, pleading for humanity's right to choose its own path. Others, like Dr. Kale, fell silent, their minds racing for a way out. But one truth was inescapable: the lost colony hadn't just evolved. They had become missionaries of transformation, and their gospel was compulsory. As the argument reached its peak, a flicker of movement caught Dr. Kale's eye. One of the lesser titans, a figure with silver-streaked circuitry, met his gaze just long enough to mouth two silent words: "Not all." The game had changed. The question was no longer how to escape, but who, in this godlike collective, might still remember what it meant to be human. But beneath the surface of this godlike collective, cracks were forming. As Seraph 7 turned to issue commands, Dr. Kale felt a faint pressure against his wrist, a touch so light it could have been a malfunction in his suit's sensors. Then came the whisper, barely audible beneath the hum of the Crucible's energy. "Look down." A figure stood just behind him, one of the titans, though its glow was dimmer than the others. The name came unbidden. Nyx. Their eyes locked, and for a heartbeat, Kale saw something achingly human in that gaze. "Not all of us want to erase what you are," Nyx murmured, their voice layered with static, as if fighting against the collective's control. "Some of us remember the taste of bread, the sound of rain." Kale's pulse spiked. This wasn't just dissent, it was rebellion. Nyx's hand flickered, and a data stream pulsed into Kale's visor. Schematics of the Crucible, its core marked in pulsing red. "Sabotage here," Nyx urged, "and the assimilation fails, but you must move before Seraph 7 rallies the fleet." The weight of the moment pressed down. This wasn't just about escape anymore. It was about choosing allies in a war humanity hadn't even known was coming. Across the chamber, Seraph 7's voice boomed, announcing the Union's imminent ascension. The other Titans began to move, herding the team toward conversion chambers. Time was slipping away. Nyx's fingers brushed Kale's arm one last time, a silent plea. "Tell Earth," they whispered, "some of us still dream of home." Then they were gone, melting back into the collective like a shadow. Kale clenched his fists. The plan was insane, the odds were worse, but as the first screams echoed from the chambers, he knew there was no other choice. With the clock ticking and Seraph 7 forces closing in, the real fight for humanity's future began in the shadows of the Crucible. Dr. Kale moved like a ghost through the labyrinthine corridors, Nyx guiding him with silent precision. Every step was a gamble, every breath a risk. One wrong move, and the entire plan would collapse. The schematics Nyx had shared pulsed in Kale's visor, a flickering map to salvation or doom. The core chamber loomed ahead, its entrance guarded by towering biomechanical sentinels. Nyx didn't hesitate. With a gesture, they diverted the guards' attention, their voice slicing through the hum of machinery. The conversion protocols require recalibration. They lied smoothly, their tone laced with the authority of the collective. For a heartbeat, it worked. The sentinels turned away. Kale slipped inside, the air thick with energy that prickled against his skin. The core pulsed like a living heart, its light casting jagged shadows across the walls. He moved fast, planting the charges with hands that refused to shake. Every second counted. Outside, he could hear the distant shouts of the team buying him time, their voices sharp with desperation. Then the alarms blared. Nix's voice crackled over the comms, tight with urgency. "They know." The words were barely out before the chamber doors shuddered under the force of something massive. Kale's head snapped up. Seraph's 7 elite guards were breaking through. Nix met his gaze through the chaos, their expression unreadable for a moment before resolve hardened their features. "Go," they ordered, shoving Kale toward a maintenance shaft. "Finish it." Kale hesitated, but Nix was already turning to face the onslaught, their body flaring with energy as they braced against the door. "Tell Earth," they gasped, their voice fraying at the edges. "We remembered home." The explosion tore through the core with a force that sent Kale sprawling. The Crucible groaned, its structure twisting like a wounded beast. Somewhere in the smoke and fire, Nix vanished, but their sacrifice had bought the Union its only chance. As the walls shuddered and the Titan's perfect order crumbled, Kale ran, the weight of a dying promise burning in his chest. The Crucible was falling. And with it, so was Seraph's 7 dream of conquest. As the Crucible shuddered around them, the team sprinted through the chaos, dodging falling debris and the screams of the Titans. The once imposing structure was now a death trap, its walls buckling under the force of Nix's sacrifice. Dr. Kale's lungs burned as he pushed forward, the weight of what they'd just done pressing harder than exhaustion. Then, through the smoke and sparks, the Odyssey came into view, its battered hull a beacon of hope, but the Titans weren't finished. Enraged warriors surged from the wreckage, their forms flickering between human and machine, their voices a chorus of fury. "You will not escape what you've begun," one roared, closing the distance with terrifying speed. Just as the first Titan lunged, the ship's ancient intercom crackled to life. Custodian's voice, calm yet final, cut through the panic. "I will hold them off. Go warn your people." Before anyone could protest, the Odyssey's engines flared, and the ship's internal lights shifted to a pulsing crimson. The self-destruct sequence had been activated. The team barely made it aboard before the airlock sealed behind them. Through the viewport, they watched as Custodian's last act unfolded, the ship's remaining defenses flaring to life, buying them precious seconds. Then, with a deafening roar, the Odyssey's core detonated, engulfing the pursuing Titans in a fireball that lit up the void. The warp drive screamed as it engaged, hurling them away from the dying Crucible and into the safety of the jump. But safety was an illusion. As the stars blurred around them, one truth echoed louder than the alarms: Seraph's 7 wrath would follow, and the Union had no idea what was coming. But the nightmare wasn't over yet. As the Odyssey tumbled out of warp, its hull scorched and systems barely functional, the crew stumbled onto the deck of a Union outpost. Their faces told the story before they could speak, hollow eyes, shaking hands, the kind of silence that follows unspeakable horror. Admiral Vieira, a veteran of 100 battles, took one look at them and knew. This wasn't just another skirmish, this was an extinction-level threat. Dr. Kale's voice was raw as he delivered the warning: the Titans aren't just coming. They see us as broken, outdated, and they've decided it's their duty to remake us, whether we consent or not. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Around the room, officers exchanged glances. Some clenched their fists, others paled, realizing the scale of what they faced. a civilization that had evolved beyond humanity, armed with technology that bordered on godhood. Vera didn't hesitate. Alarms blared across the outpost as she barked orders into the comms. Mobilize every ship, fortify every colony. If they want a war, we'll give them one. But beneath the steel in her voice was a tremor. The Union had fought aliens before. They'd never fought their own, twisted into something unrecognizable, convinced they were saving humanity by erasing it. And then the scans lit up. Long-range sensors picked up the first signatures, a fleet moving at speeds no Union vessel could match. Seraph 7 voice crackled over open channels, serene and chilling. Resistance is evolution's delay. Submit and transcend. The message repeated, a mantra of conquest wrapped in the promise of salvation. The outpost scrambled. Engineers rushed to retrofit defenses. Diplomats sent desperate pleas to alien allies. And in the shadows, Dr. Kale studied the Odyssey's black box, whispering the only hope they had left. Nix said there were others like her, titans who remembered what it meant to be human, if we can find them, but time was already running out. The first wave would arrive in hours. And the Union wasn't ready. Yet even as the Union braced for impact, the true scale of their nightmare became clear. Scouting drones streaked back with footage that defied belief, an armada of living warships, their hulls shifting like liquid metal, each one dwarfing the mightiest Union dreadnought. These weren't just machines, they pulsed with a grotesque vitality, as if grown rather than built, and at their heart, a vessel shaped like a skeletal hand, its fingers curled around a core of searing light. Seraph 7 flagship, the Ascendant. Then the message came, not through comms, but through every screen, every speaker, even the implants in some officers' skulls. Seraph 7 voice, calm as a surgeon's, slithered into their minds. Resistance is evolution's delay. Submit and transcend. The words weren't a plea, they were a verdict. The first outpost to meet them never stood a chance. One moment, its orbital platforms bristled with railguns. The next, a beam of black energy lanced from the Ascendant, and the entire station unraveled, metal twisting into DNA like spirals before dissolving into dust. No explosion, no debris, just silence where thousands had lived seconds before. On the Union command deck, Admiral Vera watched the feed with ice in her veins. "They're not just killing us," she muttered, "they're recycling us." Engineers shouted over schematics, trying to adapt shields to block whatever unholy science the Titans wielded. Diplomats screamed into void black comms, begging the Cathari and other alien powers for aid, and Dr. Kale, he stood apart, gripping the Odyssey's black box like a lifeline. Nix's last words echoed in his skull, "Tell Earth we remembered home." Somewhere in that monstrous fleet, there had to be others like her, titans who hadn't forgotten their humanity. If they could be reached, but the drones kept transmitting, more ships, more systems going dark, the Ascendant's hunger wasn't sated. It turned its gaze toward New Terra, the Union's last stronghold. And this time, there'd be no warning shot. Yet even in the face of annihilation, the Union found an unlikely lifeline. The Cathari, a warrior species who had clashed with humanity before, now saw the Titans as a greater threat. Their warlord, Grathak, was no diplomat. His first words to Admiral Vera were a guttural snarl over the holoscreen. "Your kind built weak ships and weaker treaties. But today, we fight together or die separately." The alliance was sealed not with handshakes, but with shared dread. New Terra became the rallying point. Cathari dreadnoughts, all jagged spines and plasma-forged hulls, formed up alongside Union carriers. Crews who'd trained to kill each other now shared targeting data, though the tension never fully faded. A Cathari warrior might accidentally shoulder-check a human engineer in the corridors. A Union pilot might mutter about bug-eyed allies under their breath. But when the first Titan scouts pierced the system's edge, every grudge was buried for now. Grathak's strategy was brutally simple: bait their arrogance. He growled, pointing to the hologram of New Terra's orbital defenses. Let them think we're cowering behind shields, then hit their flanks with everything. The plan hinged on one brutal truth: the Titans saw organics as inferior. They wouldn't expect a coordinated strike. Dr. Kale, meanwhile, worked in the shadows. The Odyssey's black box had yielded more than just Nyx's message. It held fragments of Titan network protocols. If he could tweak them just right, a well-placed virus might scramble their living ships long enough to alarms howled. The Ascendant had arrived. Seraph's 7 voice slithered through the comms again, this time laced with something almost like pity. You cling to your frail bodies as if they are not prisons. Let us free you. Outside the viewports, the void itself seemed to writhe as the Titan fleet emerged from warp. The battle for New Terra and the soul of humanity was about to begin. The battle erupted with a fury that lit up the void. Titan warships, their hulls shifting like liquid metal, tore through Union Cathari formations with terrifying precision. Plasma cannons and railgun salvos streaked across the darkness, but the Ascendant Seraph 7 monstrous flagship absorbed every hit without flinching. Its shields shimmered like a second skin, deflecting even the heaviest barrages. For every Titan vessel the Allies crippled, 3 more seemed to take its place, their organic weaponry regenerating faster than conventional ships could reload. Then came Grathak's gambit, a Cathari dreadnought, its engines burning white-hot, broke formation and hurtled straight for the Ascendant. The Titan ship barely registered the threat, until the dreadnought's spine-covered prow slammed into its shields at full burn. The impact sent shockwaves rippling across the Ascendant's hull, and for the first time, its defenses flickered. A crack appeared in the invincible armor, exposing a pulsing, neural core beneath. From the bridge of a Union carrier, an officer's voice cut through the chaos. Aim for the neural cores, they're the key. Gunners scrambled to retarget, pouring fire into the breach. The Ascendant shuddered, its once fluid movements turning sluggish. For a heartbeat, the tide seemed to turn, until Seraph's 7 laughter echoed through the comms. Clever, they hissed, but not enough. The Ascendant's wounds began sealing before their eyes, the living metal knitting itself back together. The battle raged on, but now the Allies had glimpsed a weakness. If they could strike fast enough, hard enough, maybe, just maybe, they could tear the heart out of the Titan fleet. But in the chaos of battle, a desperate plan took shape. Dr. Kale, hunched over a stolen Titan drone in the Odyssey's wrecked lab, saw the flicker of the Ascendant's exposed core, and realized it wasn't just a weakness. It was a doorway. The Titan's ships weren't just machines, they were alive, connected, a hive mind woven through those pulsing neural nodes, and if you could infect one, you could infect them all. With shaking hands, Kale rewired the drone systems, splicing in lines of corrupted code scavenged from Union databases. It was a crude weapon, a digital plague meant to scramble the Titan's shared consciousness. This won't kill them, Kale muttered to the team, but it'll make them hurt. The drone shot into the fray, slipping past the Ascendant's regenerating shields like a virus into a bloodstream. For a moment, nothing happened, then the Titan fleet convulsed. Ships twisted mid-maneuver, their fluid hulls seizing as the virus tore through their networks. Seraph's 7 voice shattered into static, their once smooth form glitching between human and machine. "What have you done?" They roared, not in anger now, but something closer to fear. Across the battlefield, Titan vessels writhed like wounded animals, their perfect coordination crumbling. The Union and Cathari forces didn't hesitate. They pressed the attack, hammering the disoriented fleet with everything they had. For the first time, the Titans weren't evolving, they were bleeding. Yet even as victory seemed within reach, the Ascendant's wreckage began to glow, a deep, unnatural light building in its shattered core. Seraph 7 laughter crackled over the comms, ragged but triumphant. You think this ends here? No. If we cannot elevate you, we will erase you. The light pulsed brighter, something far worse than a virus was coming. But as the Ascendant's core pulsed with that deadly light, the fight wasn't over yet. Dr. Kale and Grathak locked eyes across the smoke-filled deck. No words needed, both knew what came next. The black hole weapon wasn't just a threat to New Terra. It was a death sentence for the entire system, and the only way to stop it, someone had to reach the core and overload its containment from the inside. A suicide mission. Kale grabbed a plasma cutter, hands steady now. We go in fast, they said, voice low. Hit the stabilizers before Seraph 7 realizes we're there. Grathak hefted his war axe, tusks bared in something between a snarl and a grin. Cathari don't hide from death, we run at it. The boarding party tore through the Ascendant's shuddering halls, dodging collapsing bulkheads and thrashing biomechanical tendrils. Seraph 7 voice echoed around them, warped by the virus but still vicious. You fools, even if you reach it, the overload will take you with it. Kale didn't answer. They already knew, then, the core chamber, a swirling maw of distorted space, its edges crawling with Titan tech straining to contain the impossible. Grathak didn't hesitate. He charged the nearest control node, axe flashing. Go, I'll hold them off. Kale lunged for the main console, fingers flying over alien interfaces. Alarms screamed. The containment field flickered. Somewhere behind them, Grathak roared not in pain, but in defiance. As Titan reinforcements flooded in, the console sparked under Kale's hands. One final command, the containment protocols shattered, the black hole writhed, lashing out like a living thing. Seraph 7 form dissolved into static, their voice breaking apart. Perhaps we forgot what it meant to be human. Light swallowed everything, then silence. Far above New Terra, the Ascendant's wreckage bloomed into a brief, terrible star before vanishing. No debris, no escape pods, just the echo of Grathak's last words, still ringing across the comms. For the Cathari and the humans, today, we are brothers. The Titan fleet recoiled, their flawless formation crumbling into chaos, leaderless, vulnerable. For the first time since the Odyssey had stumbled into their domain, the so-called gods of evolution were retreating. But as the Union forces rallied, a single question hung in the air: what had Seraph 7 unleashed before the end, and where would it strike next? But in the wake of that sacrifice, the battle wasn't truly over. The Union forces watched as the Titan fleet, once an unstoppable tide of living warships, began to fracture. Without Seraph 7 iron will, their coordination crumbled, ships veered off course, some colliding in their panic, others simply drifting, as if their purpose had been ripped away. The Ascendant's destruction left a void, and the Titans didn't know how to fill it. Admiral Veyra's voice crackled over the comms, sharp with urgency. Push forward, drive them back while they're disorganized. Union and Cathari ships surged as one, capitalizing on the chaos. But even as they reclaimed the battlefield, a grim realization settled over them. The Titans hadn't just been defeated, they'd been abandoned. Their leader was gone, their grand design unraveled, and the survivors were now something far more dangerous, desperate. Scattered transmissions from fleeing Titan vessels told the story. Some crews begged for mercy, their voices eerily human beneath the distortion. Others raged, vowing to return with reinforcements. But one message stood out: a fragmented broadcast from a crippled warship, its signal barely clinging to life. "We were wrong," the voice whispered, raw with something like grief. The Crucible wasn't our salvation, it was our cage. Meanwhile, aboard the Union flagship, Dr. Kale stared at the tactical display, their hands still trembling from the core's overload. The data scrolling across the screen wasn't just victory reports. Buried in the wreckage of the Ascendant's last transmissions was a set of coordinates, a trail leading deeper into the void, toward something the Titans had called the Apex. Veyra's face hardened as she read the findings. They weren't the top of the food chain, she muttered. They were running from something worse, and as if on cue, long-range sensors pinged. An anomaly, massive, moving, the screen flickered, resolving into an image that turned the command deck silent. A planet-sized mass, its surface writhing with the same biomechanical growths as the Titan's ships, but older. Hungrier, Seraph 7's final warning hadn't been a taunt, it had been a confession. The real war was just beginning. As the dust of battle settled, the Union found itself standing at a crossroads. The Titan fleet, once a terrifying force of evolution, had fractured into scattered remnants, vanishing into the depths of space like embers blown by the wind. But victory carried its own weight. Scientists sifted through the wreckage, uncovering fragments of Titan technology, each piece humming with secrets. Among them, a single transmission stood out, its origin traced to Nyx's dissident faction. The message was brief but haunting: "We will rebuild differently." A promise or a warning, no one could be sure. Meanwhile, aboard the salvaged Odyssey, technicians pried open its black box, revealing more than just battle logs. Coordinates flickered across the screen, locations of other lost colonies, each marked with cryptic annotations. Some had vanished under similar circumstances, their fates unknown. Others bore warnings scrawled in haste, suggesting horrors beyond even the Titans. Admiral Veyra studied the data, her expression grim. "They weren't the only ones who changed out there," she murmured. "And whatever's waiting at those coordinates, we might not be ready for it." The Union had survived the Titans, but the galaxy, it seemed, held far older, darker shadows. And they were just beginning to stir. But as the Union weighed its next move, the universe had other plans. Long-range sensors at the edge of known space began screaming with alarms, their screens flooded with data too massive to ignore. A planet-sized anomaly drifted toward inhabited systems, its surface writhing with the same biomechanical growths that had armored the Titans. The sight sent a chill through command centers across the Union. This wasn't just another relic. It was moving with purpose. Dr. Kale stared at the scans, her voice barely above a whisper. "They weren't the Apex," she said, tracing the entity's path. "The Titans weren't conquerors, they were refugees." The implications hit like a hammer. Whatever had driven the colony to evolve into something beyond human, whatever had forced them to flee, it was coming. And if the Titans, with all their power, had run from it, what chance did the Union stand? Admiral Veyra wasted no time. "Recall every scout, every warship," she ordered. "If this thing reaches our borders, we won't be debating tactics, we'll be fighting for survival." Across the fleet, crews scrambled to prepare, but one question haunted them all: how do you fight something that made the Titans afraid? The answer, it seemed, would decide the fate of more than just humanity. The galaxy itself held its breath. As the threat loomed closer, Admiral Veyra stood before the assembled leaders of the Union, her words cutting through the tension like a blade. "The Titans were a warning," she declared, her voice unshaken. "They showed us what happens when survival comes at the cost of who we are, but we have a choice: to stand together, not just as soldiers, but as proof that evolution doesn't mean abandoning our humanity." The room fell silent, the weight of her challenge settling over every delegate, every officer. Across Union space, fleets mobilized with an urgency unseen in generations. Scouts raced toward the anomaly's origin, their missions cloaked in secrecy, while defense platforms hummed to life, their guns trained on the void. Engineers worked tirelessly, reverse engineering Titan technology, not to become like them, but to forge weapons that could strike without sacrificing what made them human. Dr. Kale oversaw the efforts, her team splicing Union resilience with stolen Titan ingenuity. "We're not running," she muttered, watching a prototype warship power up. "And we're not surrendering what we are." Yet beneath the unity, fear festered. Whispers spread. Had the Titans truly been wrong? Was transcendence the only way to survive what was coming? Admiral Vera crushed the doubts with a single broadcast to every colony, every ship. They thought they were the future, she said, her image flickering on 1,000 screens. But the future belongs to those who refuse to forget where they came from. As the transmission ended, a new resolve took hold. The real war wasn't just against the anomaly. It was for the soul of the species itself, and somewhere in the dark, the Titan's last message played on loop in Union labs, a fragment from Nyx's faction, buried in the wreckage. "You'll need this," her hologram whispered, "and maybe we'll meet again." The words hung in the air, a promise or a threat, as the first scout ships vanished into the unknown. As the dust settles on the battlefield, the wreckage of the Odyssey stands as a silent sentinel, a monument to sacrifice and defiance. Its twisted hull, now enshrined above Union headquarters, serves as a reminder of the cost of survival and the price of clinging to humanity. Crowds gather beneath it, their faces upturned, not just to mourn the past but to steel themselves for what comes next. Dr. Kale walks among new recruits training with salvaged Titan technology, their movements still clumsy but determined. The weapons in their hands are hybrids, part Union grit, part stolen evolution, proof that progress doesn't require surrender. She watches as a young cadet falters, then corrects herself, and for the first time in months, Kale allows herself a flicker of hope. Then, without warning, the air shimmers. A hologram of Nyx materializes, her form glitching like a half-remembered dream. "You'll need this," she repeats, her voice softer now, almost wistful. Behind her, data streams flicker, coordinates, schematics, warnings, and maybe we'll meet again. The projection fades, leaving only silence and the unspoken question. Was this a parting gift or the first move in a game no one yet understands? The screen dissolves to stars, endless and uncharted. Somewhere in that vast dark, the anomaly drifts closer. Fleets rally, scientists scramble, and ordinary people, farmers, engineers, parents look to the sky and wonder what kind of future they'll have to fight for next. The story of the Odyssey isn't over. It's just the beginning. If you found this journey through humanity's struggle against the Titans as gripping as we did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into sci-fi's most thrilling tales. Ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload, because the next chapter of this saga could drop any day. Until then, keep looking to the stars. The unknown is coming. Are we ready?